Don't try to be a security leader. Just try to be a good security person.
Hmm.
The leader part will happen if it's supposed to, and it doesn't really matter. And the reality is you need to be happy with who you are, not who you want to be.
Earlier, I said that businesses aren't sold, they're bought. I think it's the same for leaders. Leaders don't self-identify, they are chosen.
Who says tech can't be human?
What's going on, Hacker Valley fam? Welcome back to the show. I love being a podcast host. I love being a podcast host because you never know who you're going to meet and who's going to reach out to you. Well, I had a friend reach out a few weeks back and they said, "Hey, Ron, we haven't spoke in years." And this person happened to be one of my very first mentors. And he said, "Hey, you have to bring someone on your show." And that's how we got here today. My special guest is a friend of a friend, and that means a friend of Hacker Valley Media, is Nathan Case, VP of Cloud Security at Clarity. Welcome to the show, Nathan.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming on, spending some time to jump on the mics. I would love to get to know you a little bit more. I know a little bit about Clarity. I know about cloud security. And I also know Trevor. Trevor Baumgartner is the one that introduced us. So let's combine the three. You know, like what does VP of Cloud Security mean at Clarity? And also, how in the heck do you know Trevor?
So it's an interesting story. Through some crazy things that happened, I ended up looking for a role in government that would allow me to do some of the stuff that I've done at AWS and other places like that. Mostly cloud security stuff, obviously. And as it turned out, Trevor was looking for a person that was doing cloud security and was looking for cloud vulnerabilities. And all of a sudden, we started talking through another friend of ours. And poof, it kind of worked out. Met a wonderful guy named Paul, met Trevor. And it just kind of happened. It was one of those moments where you meet somebody and you meet a company like Clarity. I went and actually visited the location, and it was like coming home. It was nice.
That's great. I am curious, how does someone convince someone with your type of background, you know, especially having AWS on your resume, You're a sought after commodity. So going anywhere next, I'm sure is kind of challenging because the world's your oyster. How did you, I guess, make an informed decision on, you know, picking what path was best for you?
So it's interesting to be a very mission-driven individual. That's what I love. That's what I want to do. I want to make a big impression from my life to the world at large, and not from appreciate the podcast portion of that word, but rather do good things for the world in general. And I felt like when I was talking to Paul, when I was talking to Trevor, the realities of what Clarity is, the reality of what Clarity is in general, it is a mission-focused company. We are helping the world be a better place. And there aren't many places like that left in today's world that I think you can say that very straight-faced and honestly and say, look, we're really trying to make the world a better place. So one of the things I'm proud to say is that I got to maintain that mission-driven thought, and I was able to start looking for that.
You mentioned government. So I would imagine that you're also helping governments, or at least the United States government, with cloud security.
We are. So when I worked at AWS, I spent a whole bunch of time writing documents and different things around cloud security. I got to spend a lot of time with different governments trying to help them understand how cloud was going to be more secure for them. And that's really turned into my ability then, well, now, to help Clarity actually do cyber dominance and talk about cloud security with our government.
Ooh, I like that term, cyber dominance. That's what I'm talking about. That sounds powerful.
It does, doesn't it? It's really neat.
It's a lot better than just hearing the word breach over and over again, which is still a powerful word, but negative connotation.
Very negative connotation. And I think it's nicer to talk about. One of the folks at Clarity came up with cyber dominance as a cool word. And I like it because it's more of we're not going to take it laying down anymore. We're going to be defensive. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to deal with the things that are bad in the world. And we're going to start looking at them a little bit more closely.
Love that. You know, with taking a new job, especially VP level, I'm sure there's a lot that comes with it. Responsibilities, but I would imagine also a team. One of the things that I am always sensitive for when it comes to Hacker Valley is bringing in new leaders and making sure that their leadership styles and their role aligns with the future and the forward progression of all the other employees. How do you handle that? How are you navigating that now that you have taken on this new responsibility with an entirely new organization?
Right. It's never simple. Let's be frank. The same day that I came in as my first day was actually the day that they closed an M&A deal with Chameleon, CCG, which is a different group, similar size actually. It was a big deal and everybody was quite proud of it. And all of us coming together at a moment kind of made a singularity. And it's kind of a neat sort of a story because it really is this question of how do we define who we are? And I like who Clarity as whole is becoming. And because of that, it makes it a little easier. I don't know, maybe a little bit more complicated, but fun as things go through. Not to be horribly like cryptic about it, but it does allow for the ability to take a moment. Everybody steps back and evaluates who they want to be long term. So it's kind of neat. And as we start putting the things back together and deciding how the pieces need to fit, doing it together as a team and being able to talk about how that works is pretty neat.
A lot of people that come on the show, they either work as a leader that is managing people or they want to step into that. There's a lot of people that come on and also listen to the show that want to be a CISO ultimately. You know, the CISO is the ultimate decision maker for especially corporate security and risk. But, you know, looking at how you're stepping into leadership at Clarity, I think I could learn something. Everyone can learn something from it. What did your first 90 days look like? What was like your mindset for like, all right, this is how I'm going to wrangle and make sense out of this and also maintain a level of control, which, you know, you probably need in that role.
Right. Well, to begin with, I'm probably the outside of this one. So I don't believe that a CISO should exist as we think about CISOs today. I will push back on people who try to use that title. Generally, I've avoided that title when I can. The problem with the title and the problem with the thought is in a large enterprise, it's really simple for not you, Ron, but the figment Ron or the figurative Ron to push that thought of security, that responsibility of security off to the person holding the CISO title or the person holding the security title. And I've done a number of talks for folks over the years where the talk that I'm thinking about right now is literally titled Down with the CISO, because I really, really want to take that security thing, that responsibility, and make sure that we all have a hand in it. It needs to be something that we all feel responsible for, as opposed to the figurative developer being able to hand it off to the figurative security person and go, oh, I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's not my problem. Because the reality is it's part of everybody's problem, and we need to all think about it. And technology done well happens to be secure, just like making a car done well happens to also stop when you hit the brakes.
When I think of CISO, there's one thing that I have to remind myself of. If you get breached, someone might need to get fired. Who's the person that's getting fired? In my world, if I had a CISO and I got breached, boom, that person's getting fired. If I lose $3 million out of my business, CFO, you're out of here. I need to go explore my options. How do you take that? Because, you know, you're saying that the responsibility should be shared. You can't let go of everybody or hold everybody responsible. So I guess where's that middle ground with that thought process?
So I think that's one of the impetuses actually for this thought process is, you know, the reality is that we've pushed off this concept of CISO, or if we pushed off this concept of CISO, does that CISO have the ability to control development? Do they have the ability to control the backlog? And I push back on you if you say yes. But the reality here is most CISOs don't really have the funding, the power, or the control of the backlog in development or technology to do anything really when it comes to how are we going to take care of this thing. They're allowed to buy security tools. Yay. Mm-hmm. They're allowed to buy more security people. Yay. But when it comes to the thing that's actually going to be breached, when it comes to let's figure out how we fix this thing before it becomes a problem, they don't have the power to do that. So when we think about how things happen, I would urge us as nation, as state, as people, as humans, to kind of pull back and go, wait, the people that actually need to fix this problem aren't the people with the security title. They're trying desperately to help us fix this problem most of the time. And being an incident responder, man, I've been through so many of these things with so many different companies where you look at the poor guy in the seat and you're like, yeah, you're going to get fired. But the reality is that dude had no responsibility for the things that were happening.
And maybe that's why they should get fired. If you can't control the response, if you can't be the one responsible.
But who gave them the power to begin with? Did anybody give them the power to be responsible? And if your CEO didn't invest that power in you as CISO and you can't control that thing, then should you be fired if there's an issue? Awkward.
This is a good debate. I'm liking this. There was a quote that I heard recently that companies are not sold, they're bought. I look at the same thing for power. Like, power is rarely ever given. Like, if I have to go over all of the responsibilities and remind you that you're responsible for this, then maybe I should have hired someone that could just assume those responsibilities, assume it, and then hold it if it does happen, but do everything in their power to make it not happen, or make it very clear as day, here is what can happen. So when it does, it's just at the top of everyone's mind. I think, like, if someone let me know every week, Ron, you're at risk of, losing your most valuable resource, whether it's data or money, then I can't let them go when it happens. If all of a sudden, they told me 3 months ago, that's not going to help me now.
And I think those are two very specific instances. I agree with you. If you have the dude sitting in the corner waving the little red flag or waving the little white flag going, we're screwed. Okay, yeah, that's not okay. But at the same time, a good CISO will consistently point out, yes, you're signing a risk acceptance document. Yes, we have a compliance requirement to say that we're going to do this thing. Yes, we have a governance regulation that says that we have this compliance requirement. Yes, all of these things are done. And Ron, you, the CEO of the company, are making a choice. You understand that, right? And if you go, then we've got a whole different problem going on. If you say, yes, Nathan, I get that we've made that choice, you're right. I don't believe at that point I have off-put my ability to be your security CISO, your security officer, to you. I think we've agreed that we're going to take this risk together. I think that's the way that needs to be, as opposed to you saying, yeah, the dude waving the white flag in the corner, yeah, he's responsible. That's a different thing. And there's that wiggle line there, right? Like, if you're the CISO that got hired and you're just sitting there waiting for somebody to fire you, I don't know what to tell you. If you're stepping forward and doing the things that you need to do, that's where you need to be right now. That's who the CISO needs to be. But I would point out that I don't think that you can actually make change, large corporate enterprise scale change, until you can invest security into development, until you can invest security into HR and all of the other portions of that company. And if you take that CISO title and you use it in that way, man, go nuts.
Yeah.
I support you. That is 100% of what needs to happen. Yes. The problem is most people don't have that power.
I need to jump in for a second and share some details about a special group that we've created for you, our listeners. We understand the importance of creativity in cybersecurity, and Hacker Valley has created a special Cyber Creators Mastermind. Each month, we meet and discuss how to break down technical concepts through stories, the intricacies and opportunities of using audio and video to highlight what's important in cybersecurity, and we share how you can use content to highlight the hard work that you put into your craft. You can check out the mastermind by visiting hackervalley.com/mastermind. We'd love to help unlock your creative potential and would love to see you there. It's a slippery slope. It's a very slippery slope. We both know someone, Michael Piacente. He is one of the founders of Hitch Partners.
Yeah.
And when I looked at his report, I saw the salaries of public and private sector CISOs. And my mind was blown. I was like, do I want to be a CISO? Because these salaries, $500,000, a few $100,000 for a bonus and equity. If I were breached and I was a CISO and I was able to collect that type of income, I would expect, I'm the one responsible because the pay is dictating it, but that might not be still fair. It might not be a good idea for you to pay someone a lot of money and then just say, all right, well, if I get hacked, now I'm going to blame you. And you don't have a response. I'm not going to take your response because I'm paying you $500,000. That's not a good way to go about it. But I do think that's how a lot of people, their minds work. And that might be a human level flaw.
Well, I think that is, I think I'll definitely accept the human level flaw on that one. I would tell you that if you do that job, if you take the CISO title because you want the actual money, and that's
The
that's
bag. I want it.
I want the bag, man. I want that thing. I cannot tell you how many times I've been a mentor for someone and they've looked at me and said, I'm taking this job, or I want to take this job because I want the bank today.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to be a happy choice. That is the wrong way to go. That is the wrong choice to make. You will not be happy and you will not do a good job at that role, because it's a mission role. It's a question of, are you actually serving the people that you're taking that role for? And one of the things at Clarity is it's a mission-oriented folk. It's a team-oriented group. I am happy to work with these people. Why? Because we share it. We share that responsibility, and it's a different thing, man. You can't get paid enough money to do this job.
I just got goosebumps when you talked about mission, because that's so important. One reality that I try to always come to terms with as a mission-oriented person is not everyone works that way. One of my best friends, he works in cybersecurity, and he is 100% only in the industry for the money. He's got a family. I don't blame him. You gotta do a job. He loves hanging out with his daughters. That's what his passion and his mission is. His mission is to see his daughters smile. And what he does from 9 to 5 is he works for a cybersecurity company. And it makes me remember when I speak to him that some people that I work with, some people that I've worked with in the past, they're here for the opportunity. And that is great, because you still need those types of people, because sometimes they're the hardest worker because they have the most to lose, like taking away the opportunity to provide for his daughters by taking away the money. Mm-hmm. Someone with mission might, think that there's a little bit more time because they're playing the long game, but that person that's in it for the money, they need it done now. Yeah. How do you, I guess, manage those two different types of personalities in the current role or your previous roles?
I would even go so far as to say, how do I manage those two separate ideals in my own head, frankly? My wife would tell you I don't do it well. I do my best to be a good dad. I do my best to respect my daughters and my wife's needs. I would tell you that I don't think I'm a particularly good father. I do my best, but I think I lack sometimes. And I lack because I focus on, what can I do to save the world? What can I do to make the world a better place? And hopefully when they grow up, they will see something like this, me saying this out louder in public, and forgive me a little bit. But it is something that I've made the choice to do occasionally. And it's unfortunate.
Same.
But realistically, somebody had to make the choice to go hard on that particular topic or that particular incident. And yeah, I was the guy that decided to do that day. How do I feel about everybody else? I would hope that there are enough people on the planet that the diversity of all of us together can make a functional team. And we have to accept everybody for who they are and where they are at the time. Some days that means you're on the incident response team, if that's where you want to be and you're willing to make those sacrifices. That's what that means. That's who you want to be. A CISO, man, there are a bunch of sacrifices that go with that choice. I will support the hell out of you if you want to make that call, man. Good for you. Let me help you. Let me help you there. But make no mistake, it is a give or take. And
it
some
is.
days you need to decide whether or not you can make those calls. And there are only so many hours in the week. And trust me that, the number of hours in the week do not correspond with the number of phone calls and emails that you're going to get. And it sucks. And, how do you deal with, my daughter is going to go run at a track meet today, and I've got, a tier 1 emergency going on, and I've got to make a phone call. Yeah, there are moments when you've got to make that call, and it sucks.
Yeah, it does. It reminds me of the current situation I'm in. I literally just heard my wife walk into the house. She called me and I can't respond because I'm working and I love what I do. So I think there's always that silver lining, the mission oriented people. If you find that mission, that thing that's really important to you, then it does justify any other type of way that you spend or invest your time, at least somewhat. It might not be a good swap, but at least it does. There's some justification rather than like scrolling on Instagram and, not getting much back from it.
Yeah. I would tell you that. So I'm actually working on a blog post with a friend, and we're actually trying to come up with a reasonable discussion about how bad incident response is for humans. And it's one of those things that causes PTSD, and people get broken and hurt. And we talk about the realities of doing these things inside of this construct of mission. And part of being in the mission is making sure that you take care of you. And that's kind of one of those balance points that, as we talk about things, it's important. I was just a briefing that Brigadier General Cropsey gave yesterday, and he was very intense about the concept of balance and understanding that family time and mission matter, and how you actually approach both of those things. And as someone who is decidedly in the seat for evaluating whether or not we as a nation are safe, he's one of those people. He literally gets to sit and make that call, and he's still saying from his point of view, family time is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should take that as a nugget of truth going forward. Understanding where you're sitting and who you're protecting counts, but understanding that you need to spend time with them counts too.
1000%. One of the things that I think could give us some time back is artificial intelligence. I just did a keynote on how AI is the tool, not the toolbox. Like, it could do a lot of your work, it could save you time, but unfortunately, it can't replace you. I think people get concerned about AI replacing us, but we kind of want it to replace a good portion of our job. A good portion of my job is just sending out emails. I would love if all of my emails were drafted already and I just proofread them and, send them out and, added my own tone and voice, or maybe it collects that and uses it.
Yeah.
But I would love to hear, what's been on your radar for improving the efficiency, innovation? Is it AI, other tech? What are you focusing?
So recently, I was accepted as an IANS faculty member, which is
congrats.
Quite proud of that. But one of the things that's come up quite a bit, and I was kind of surprised about, was AI in SOC, AI in security. And it's really interesting to me who wants to throw the word AI into the tools that we get. As we look at the things that humans do well, I think it's very important to balance a lot of the marketing with things that have been said before. I forget who said it, but about 10 years ago, a guy looked at me and said, the reality is humans make decisions really, really well. Computers don't. And I don't know that that's actually changed. It feels to me like AI has come to the point where we've looked at things. It's more than capable of giving you a great summary. It's more than capable of giving you great, hey, we've got terabytes of data and these 10 things are important. Yay. But when it comes to making the choice about what to do with those 10 things, or how to deal with those 10 things from a next step point of view, I think it really turns into this tool that's able to evaluate huge chunks of things and really complex things potentially, and simplify them to the point where you can actually make a call on them as a human, and then figure out what's actually important to you and then move forward. So as we talk about security, maybe it's getting 100 million events that have occurred and saying, hey, do you realize that of the 100 million, it's really these 10 things that are the problem?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look, we need to put MFA on that root account. Should we have known that anyway? Yeah, probably. But at the same point, it's still right there for you, and it's able to come up to that point. And I think that's really the concepts that we need to start getting at. There are a lot of people that have approached me and said, well, I want to run all of my logs through AI. And as much as I would love to say, yeah, let's go do that, for that to work, you'd need to be able to run a whole bunch of good logs through the AI and then be able to show it what bad logs look like. And since we really don't have a bunch of good logs to do that with, this doesn't really work. So how do we figure that out? Where's the answer there? I think it turns into more of summarization and categorization, and give me the things that I as a human need to make an answer on. And then eventually maybe we'll get to this other thing in the future.
In cyber, there's a lot of people with imposter syndrome. I hear it all the time. I bring on a lot of people, all walks of life. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. So I wonder, is there a little bit of a gap in feeling as though you're the best person to make a decision? I've always been a decision maker. I've had zero problem in my life just saying yes or no, but I know that it's not the case for everybody.
man, I don't know about you. I suffer from imposter syndrome all the time. It's a real thing. And I have no idea where that plays into this whole thing. I'm not a psychologist. I don't even play one on TV, but it feels to me like we get scared to make the decision sometimes. And when I do incident response talks, I'll talk about OODA loops a lot. Really
act.
important.
That's the hard one.
Decide and then act. And you know what? Write it down. Like, this worked well. This didn't work at all. But if you don't make that act choice, if you don't get to and for everybody on the phone, we're going to observe, we're going to orient, we're going to decide, and then we're going to act. And that's the OODA loop. But if you can't act, then what was the point? So just make a call. And worst case scenario, you learn something new and you get to do it again here in a second.
I would feel infinitely better if a person made the call than an AI, especially on a call for how to remediate, like, or taking that remediation action. Just do it. Just try it. And if it breaks, at least you will know, you'll see it, you'll observe it, kind of like, then you could go through the OODA loop again until that, incident can be closed out.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just make the next call and just survive long enough to make the next call, and then the next call, and the next call, and keep trying to make things better.
We both know Chris Cochran. Chris helped found Hacker Valley, and he has taught me two key things that come to mind in this conversation. One is, when it comes to incident response, there needs to be an incident commander, someone that is taking the flag and putting it in other people's courts. All right, hey, I need you to go get this. I need you to go get this. And then doing the follow-ups. Is this done? Is this done? And in a way, they're possibly the one that is kind of giving the recommendation that the incident is closed. The second thing that Chris has taught me over the years is the platinum rule. I never heard of this idea in the past, but the platinum rule is, the golden rule is treat others the way that they want to be treated. The platinum rule is treat others the way that they want to be treated. I guess when it comes to incident response, you have someone on your team that wants to be able to make decisions, but they don't feel like they can. How do you give them that encouragement to, be a great incident commander or just a leader in the incident response space?
Push them off the edge and get them to fly effectively.
Yeah.
There is no good answer for this, dude. So I do tabletops a lot. Did one of the tabletops at DEF CON this year. Was actually really proud of how it turned out. Going to go up to Quebec and do one here in a month or so.
Oh, great.
Really love tabletops for this specific reason. But you've got to really put in the time and energy into making someone feel a specific way during the tabletop. So the tabletop we did at DEF CON was specifically created to make you feel that kind of that chest clenching pain and stress of, oh my God, the world's ending. Because we want you to, as an incident responder, I want you to feel that as you learn. I don't want it to be yeah, sure, whatever, left or right, I don't care. I want you to feel like it's important. I want your chest to close up a little bit. I want you to be stressed, because when you go through that moment and you've got to make that call and you're not sure if you're going to get fired or not tomorrow, I want you to think about that a little bit. I want you to see what it feels like to go through that, because in an incident, you're going to start feeling things like that. And it's scary, and it's wrong, and it's messed up, and it's human, and it's gushy and weird and gnarly. And yeah, man, that's being human.
For sure. It is. Another piece of being human is this idea of perfectionism. I would imagine that shows up for you in your life. This is an assumption. So I guess, are you a perfectionist? And how does that show up for you?
I am a chosen perfectionist. I choose where I'm going to be a perfectionist at this point in my life. You could look at so you are currently in my workshop, effectively. If you could turn the camera around, and you would see that my workshop is a mess. Why? Because I start little projects and I move on to the next thing. And then frankly, I get sucked up into whole huge things and I don't finish quite right. But if I had my druthers, I would sit and work on a project until it was 100% perfect. And then I would very carefully move on to the next. And I've chosen specific portions of my life not to be like that on, because I have to. Because if I don't, I end up spiraling. And it really comes into the concept of how do you control your own gifts and detriments. And it is decidedly one of my ADHD control mechanisms, to basically focus on a specific thing and then mentally put it down and go have dinner.
That's good. That's good that you're able to do that. I'm still learning that for, my life in certain areas. I don't necessarily skip dinner, but there will be times where I skip breakfast, where, I want to just get after it early in the morning. I'm like, oh, no distractions. Let me just go and try.
Yep. Totally with you, man. I did that this morning, and yeah, shouldn't do it.
So this is your workshop. This isn't your office. It looks like a home studio.
So it ended up being a home studio over COVID, but it is effectively the workshop. We've got a laser printer and CNC machine over there, and we've got a stack of lab equipment over there, and we've got a hot bench over there where I can do soldering and some light welding and whatnot.
So if you weren't VP of Cloud Security at Clarity, what would Nathan be doing today?
What would Nathan would be finishing up a radio cabinet, or rather a record cabinet for his oldest daughter. And going ahead and finishing out I was going to put trim around the top of it. She decided she didn't want it. And then I put the whole thing together. It's all glued together at this point, ready to get finished. And she looked at me and went, yeah, I want the trim.
Oh, okay.
Left, right, left. I guess we're going to do the trim. So I'm doing the trim. And that's probably what I'll be working on this afternoon.
Wow. Okay. So nice to know for the daughters that they could just put special features on the custom work that you're doing.
I wish it goes back to the perfectionism thing. It's interesting. You want a story about woodworking? I suppose. What the heck?
Let's jump in. Yeah.
All right. So I got into woodworking when my wife got pregnant with our first daughter. And it was kind of this moment of, I want to do something that my dad did for me when I was that age. And so I got into it, and I started looking at the things that happen around me and whatnot, and looking at all the pieces as one does when you pick up a new hobby. Oh, what are you doing? It was interesting. And I started paying attention to things differently. And my parents actually ended up buying a really nice table for their entryway. And it's one of these the lion-footed tables, and the very nice, beautiful French lines and whatnot. And I got really into it. And lo and behold, it actually was one of the more important lessons I got in life, I think, frankly. They left for a weekend, and I got to watch the house for them. And I went up, and first thing I did was lay out a bunch of towels and flip this table over and start measuring, because I wanted to see if I could actually recreate it myself. And it wasn't square, Ron. No portion.
The table wasn't a square?
No, there's no portions of this table that were square. None of it was square. None of the angles were 90 degrees. None of the angles were right. And so as I sat there and just stared at this table and was entirely confounded with the whole thing, I put it back to where it was and put all of their knick-knacky stuff back on the table and realized it's perfect. And I think it's a really interesting parallel for the world that we live in today, and that we all get lost in this concept of what's perfect, or how does this work, or is this okay? And the reality is that life is basically a Queen Anne table sitting in my parents' entryway. Is effectively this beautiful piece of hand-carved woodwork that just will always be what it is. It will be a beautiful piece of woodwork, but it will never be perfect. And frankly, we accept it because it's pretty. We don't accept it because it's perfect.
That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a valuable lesson. There's been so many times, I'm sure it's happened for you as well, where you finish a project and you're not necessarily happy with it, but someone else is over the moon with it. Like it's everything. It's life. But for you, it just might not be, it might just not feel finished or feel like it's, I guess we like to think of things as symmetrical, as perfect, but that's not often the case.
It's so commonly not. And I think as I look back on some of my favorite IT projects and look at some of the things that I've done, you look at it and go, I never quite got around to that corner, but nobody cares. It's in your head. It's not necessarily in everybody else's. You have to try to begin to see things from everybody else's point of view.
Love that.
It's an interesting question.
So how do we put all this together? There's someone that's listening that's probably now ears are perked up. Like there's lessons that go deeper than just security. For anyone that is listening to this and they want to be a security leader, they're trying to think of some of those things that they're going to need to think about as perils in their career. What's one peril that's really, helped you that you would pass down to someone else?
Don't try to be a security leader. Just try to be a good security person. Leader part will happen if it's supposed to, and it doesn't really matter. And the reality is you need to be happy with who you are, not who you want to be.
Earlier, I said that businesses aren't sold, they're bought. I think it's the same for leaders. Leaders don't self-identify, they are chosen. I would definitely recommend, everyone to keep that in the top of their mind when they're thinking about their journey in cyber. Nathan, I wanted to say thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day to jump on the mics. I know that you got a lot of woodworking and great things to do. But for anyone that hasn't already connected with Nathan, be sure to drop into the show notes or description wherever you're listening or watching and connect and follow Nathan. Also check out Clarity. They're not a sponsor, but since Nathan and Trevor both work there, they're friends of Hacker Valley. And with that, we will see everyone next time.